What is going on, FA Nation? My name is Justin Fensterman, along with Jon Impemba, and it's time to talk some DFS hoops here for the Friday night slate
Yes.
9 games. Ji, what's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, Fancy, but I mean, wild start already to this live stream. We talk about it all the time. Like this is the witching hour almost, right? This is like our favorite time to start these streams because we're getting in all the injury news. We heard earlier today Toronto was going to be without like their entire coaching staff due to health protocols, and I sat there and I'm like, how are none of the players ruled out tonight due to health protocols, but the entire coaching staff is ruled out? It didn't make any sense. Lo and behold, right as we hit go, Pascal Siakam ruled out due to health protocols. It makes you wonder how many other players are going to be close contact guys ruled out as we get closer to roster lock, which is at 7:30 tonight.
How many times are we going to go through this? We're just going to continue to go through it, and with that, it's a 7:30 game, so we're going to have to know soon. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
we'll know at least before roster lock. Like I said, roster's at 7:30 today, so that's the plus. At least this isn't like a 9 o'clock game and rosters are at 7 and we don't know.
right.
Like we'll at least know who's in, who's out before rosters lock, hopefully.
All right, so let's say we want to go with the assumption that we're going to actually know all the information here. So with no Siakam, who are you looking at? You looking at one of the wings, or let's talk about that right away since it's such an impactful player that's out in a good matchup. Yeah. Or do you look at some of the bigs? Do you look at maybe a Chris Boucher?
Yeah, listen, I mean, I would love for this to be the Chris Boucher game. It's a fantastic matchup against a team that plays small in Houston. This should be the spot where Boucher thrives. They're now shorthanded in their front court, so you would think that this would be an opportunity for Boucher to play more minutes. They could also just as easily throw Anunoby as a power forward.
They could
move Norman Powell to small forward, play Aaron Baines, and go with that route as their starting five, which is more of their traditional sort of lineup there. So that's certainly a possibility. It could keep Boucher off the bench in his reserve role. I think DeAndre Bembry is likely going to see some additional minutes. We could see Stanley Johnson get a bump in production, but obviously as somebody that is invested in DFS, we know the upside that Chris Boucher has. This is a fantastic matchup for him, like we said. Aaron Baines would sort of be wasted playing up against a Rockets team that plays small. So, if you want to go ahead and go with Boucher, I'm looking at his price right now. He's $5,600 over on DraftKings. I think he's probably similarly priced on FanDuel in that upper 5K range, I would imagine. I hope Boucher. I'll probably have some exposure to him tonight.
He's got to get the minutes, right? I mean, can we even lock him in for 25 though?
I don't know. That's the problem. It's so hit or miss. I would like to confidently tell you he's going to play 25 minutes tonight. And I think if he does, he has tremendous upside with that amount. I need to see that, but we've seen him play 18 to 20 minutes at times this year for no apparent reason. But if there was ever a spot for him to play minutes tonight, it's tonight with Siakam ruled out.
Well, then let's go over some of the other injuries. Bam Adebayo for the Heat is questionable with a knee injury. Jonas Valanciunas questionable with a thigh. Tyrese Halliburton is doubtful, and it's really looking like he's not going to play with a calf injury. Al Horford is resting, so he's going to be out for the Thunder. Tyler Hero still dealing with that hip injury. He's questionable. Devontae Graham is out with the knee. Dennis Schroeder is probable to return. He had been dealing with the COVID protocols of the league. Sadiq Bey questionable with an ankle injury. Cody Zeller was originally questionable, downgraded to doubtful with a hip injury. Otto Porter is still out. Cam Reddish still dealing with the Achilles injury. He's doubtful. Hamidou Diallo is going to be out still with the groin injury. Hassan Whiteside is in COVID protocol, so he is out. Justice Winslow is resting. Dario Saric is questionable for this one, J.I. And with that, I think, and trust me, I am watching to see if we get any more news on Raptors.
I'm glad you are, because one of us has to be to make sure we update everybody correctly.
That's the priority right now. However, the other priority is looking at James Grande's DFS playbook for tonight's DFS NBA slate on fantasyalarm.com. So while we're awaiting more news regarding the Raptors as the top story, let's go over some of the top price point guards heading into tonight, J.I. And you got to look at Damian Lillard when Dame Dollar's on the slate, especially with some of the narratives that you've been talking to me about player motivation surrounding the All-Star game, because you know that King James said that Dame Dollar is disrespected.
He is. He's one of the best guards in the league that honestly is overshadowed for one reason or another, and I don't really know why. Maybe it's because he's up in Portland. I can't understand it. But this is a great matchup for him. He's one of my favorite players on the slate. The only problem really for me tonight is the price. I think the price is keeping me on him as only for game stacks. Over $10,000 on FanDuel, over $10,000 on DraftKings, and Fensty. I mean, I'm looking at guys just below him. Trey Young is under 10K on both sites. He gets a great matchup against the Thunder. Trey Young's been playing out of his mind right now. And then Steph Curry is cheaper than him on DraftKings. I know you love some Steph Curry tonight going up against Charlotte, and he's even a little bit cheaper than him on FanDuel. So as much as I love Dame Dollar tonight, Dame Lillard in this matchup against the Lakers, Dennis Schroeder is expected to return. We know that he can't play any defense at all. Lillard certainly has 60 fantasy point upside in this matchup. The price for me is going to keep me off of him for some of the guys that I think have the same level of talent for a little bit cheaper.
You're on DraftKings. Who you paying for, Trey or Steph?
I really am in on Trey Young here. I mean, I've been riding him now for a couple of slates, and this is a lot of credit to James Grande for sort of pointing him out first, where, the shooting percentages started to slowly creep up. And earlier this year, Trey was dealing with a little bit of a wrist injury, and that we really think that was hampering his effectiveness because he wasn't hitting shots at a good rate at all. He was shooting like 25% from three, and this is a guy that is closer to a 40% three-point shooter. Now the shooting percentages are up. We're getting double-digit assists. He's rebounding a little bit, and we know that we can attack the Thunder pretty much at every position. It should be a really great battle tonight between him and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So for me, I'm going to take a little bit of the savings on DraftKings and go with Trey Young here.
Yeah, I mean, both of them are in great spots. You and I were talking about it before. If we want to go and price down, though, and this is why I'm wearing this. Do you know why I'm wearing this jersey today, J.I.? Do you know why?
Why we got it?
Detroit basketball. Come on, man. We got some value here with some guys out. Saban Lee, Dennis Smith Jr., both of them in good spots. I can expect 20. I feel like they're going to split the duties with DeLon Wright still out. So with all of that, Sadiq Bey also being questionable adds more shots, time with the Rock if he's out. Who do you like better? Do you like both of these players, first of all, because I do? And number two, between the two, who would you rather put in your DFS lineups tonight?
Yeah, I'm going to trust, I think, Saban Lee a little bit more than DSJ tonight. We've just seen more of the production of late, and even in limited minutes, he only played 21 minutes the other night. He still gave you 30 fantasy points. I know that Dennis Smith Jr., I think, has the overall higher ceiling.
Does he, though?
He does. We've seen him start and put up big performances before. He's a great offensive. All right, great's an exaggeration. He's a volume shooter that he can score when the baskets go in, right? So, I expect him to take more shots than Saban Lee. So on nights where those shots fall, then he's going to have the higher ceiling. But we've really only seen the one game where he's played more minutes than Lee. It was that last game. I think that Lee is at least a bit of a more safer option, but you're paying for that safety. He's more expensive than Dennis Smith Jr. It's a great matchup overall. Dennis Smith Jr. has been starting, but I also think that it helps that if Saban Lee is now going to come in off the bench and there's no Halliburton, I think then that could even make a better matchup for him as well, because Halliburton had been coming off the bench lately. So I think both are fine. Saban Lee to me is safer. I think I'd rather pay for that a little bit, but if you're going all out of GPPs tonight or you're playing the 20 max, yeah, throw Dennis Smith Jr. in a couple of those lineups. I have no problems. And on the flip side, he's not in the playbook yet, but I expect Grande probably to update it. With Halliburton unlikely to play, I think Corey Joseph could be somebody that we take a look at. He was somebody that we had played, that we were playing, as early as a week or so ago. The minutes had been there. He'd given you that low to mid 20s fantasy production. It's Detroit. So I think Corey Joseph as a value point guard could also be in play.
Yeah, I mean, again, when he is given the opportunity, then yes, he will get you there, producing a little bit of everything. But overall, the other side of it, I mean, I have to have this Detroit team in my lineups, scattered, sprinkled everywhere. They're going up against an exhausted Sacramento team. Did you see the Kings-Knicks game last night? Yeah. Sacramento was going to be dead tired.
I mean, they lost by 40 and 20 in that game, right? 140 to 121. So
it's a shootout the entire game.
Yeah,
that's what it is. So that means you got to go Detroit. So we're going to be talking a lot about Detroit value. But for now, let's move over to the twos and talk about the shooting guard position. Who are you paying up for tonight at shooting guard?
I mean, if we're looking to spend up, again, I mentioned Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I think that's probably the spot I'm looking to go with. He's $8,000 on FanDuel. On DraftKings, he's $8,800. It's this matchup against Atlanta. He's coming off a huge game, 60 fantasy points against San Antonio. He had 40 the game before that. He had 50 the game before that. So he's really looking like the player we expected this year. On a Thunder team that has nothing else, right? And there's no Al Horford tonight either. So even more of those sort of with how the offense occasionally runs through Horford, I expect the ball to fully be in SGA's hands tonight in a fantastic matchup here against Atlanta. So I understand that there's Zach LaVine on this slate. There's Paul George on this slate. To me, those are sort of questionable positions. The Suns have been blowing out teams left and right. They're really playing strong defense. So can I trust LaVine to have a ceiling game? Probably not.
What about FVV?
Who is that?
What about Freddie VanVleet?
Yeah, Fred VanVleet's fine. Again, I want to see what happens with the rest of this Raptors game. But right, with Siakam being out, there's going to be a lot more shots available. Fred VanVleet is always a guy that we love in those GPPs. The question always sort of comes between James and I lately is you're paying premium dollar for VanVleet, or you're getting Norman Powell for $2,000 cheaper, and we've seen Powell come out and put up 40 fantasy point games. So is he likely to take more shots potentially with VanVleet and not necessarily worth the cost? I mean, that's the question I tend to have there more often than not. I find myself going down to Norman Powell than spending up for VanVleet, but it's nothing against
every slate, bro. Every single slate. He has been Mr. Value, Norman Powell. Part of that is because, kind of like last year, the Raptors have had players in and out constantly.
He's $2,000 cheaper. Is he giving you consistent? The last three games for Fred VanVleet have been like 45 or more fantasy points.
Right.
You see Norman Powell, 24, 43, 12, 48, 44. So like he can give you that same production. Right. There's also some of those that miss ability, but that's why he's $2,000 cheaper. So if you need the savings, pay for Powell and hope you get, three of the last 5 games have been over 40 fantasy points for him. So, I mean, I'll take those odds, 3 of 5, to give me another chance at 40 fantasy tonight against Houston with no Siakam. So, to me, I just think more people will pivot down in that way, but it's nothing against VanVleet. Probably get a lower ownership, and we've seen him score like 50 actual points this year, VanVleet. So, definitely has a higher ceiling.
Speaking of ownership, our ownership projections have Josh Jackson at a very low ownership projection. I'm kind of shocked about that. Are you?
A little bit. I mean, I get why sometimes people are
2%.
Yeah, it's because the price is continually to be on the way up, right? It's 6,400 now. We're used to paying the mid 5Ks for him over on DraftKings. On FanDuel, Jackson is priced out at 57, so it makes a lot more sense to have him probably in your lineups. But 3 straight games now of over 30 fantasy points. It's Sacramento, like we said. There's no Tyrese Halliburton, who's been one of the best rookies in basketball this year, in my opinion. I don't think many will really argue too much that he's in that conversation for Rookie of the Year. So he's getting Buddy Hield, which I think is a better matchup for him. So I'm with you on Jackson. I wish he would start. He comes off the bench. We're expecting Jeremy Grant back tonight. He'll take some shots away. So we'll see what happens. If Saddiq Bey gets ruled out, maybe Jackson starts. We'll see.
Oh, 100% at that point. I'd be shocked if he didn't. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see with Saddiq Bey because, again, that Detroit team's got some good value on it. It
does. I said Sacramento-Detroit, honestly, is one of my favorite game stacks of the night. A lot of that does come from the Detroit side, but, I think there are some players on the Sacramento side of things, even on their back-to-back, that can do some damage here.
We might as well just talk about him right now then. Jeremy Grant coming off his rest game a few days ago. Very cheap price. I put him in the starting 5 on the site tonight. 76-73 against this tired Kings team, man.
Yeah.
Come on, bro. This is an easy one right here, a no-brainer. He's got to be in all our lineups. And you look at the ownership projections here, and now it's higher, especially on DraftKings being above 28.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Like you mentioned, he's coming back off the day of rest. He had a stretch there where he was, not fully returning value, but I think this is a good matchup to get him back on track. The question is, again, position eligibility and the multi-position positions that people have on DraftKings versus FanDuel, where he is a power forward. you look at the rest of the power forward grid there, and you're like, all right, well, are you paying 7,600 for Jeremy Grant? Are you paying 73 for the way Draymond Green has been playing? Would you pay 7K for John Collins, who's just below him? Would you pay 65 for Chris Boucher, like we mentioned already? So, like, there are other guys that are on this slate on FanDuel where you have to sort of make some decisions, and that's not even counting Monte Sabonis here, $9,900 at the top, which I think could be one of the higher owned players of the slate tonight, going up against Boston, how bad they've played against opposing big men all season long. Boston's reeling a bit here. So, does Grant fit lineups at his price? That's really my question. But like you said, we're looking at our draft percentages, and we're expecting that there to be some exposure here.
I mean, who else do you like when it comes to high-priced threes, though? That's the thing. There's not too many options I really like. I mean, do you want to spend the price that it's going to be for LeBron?
I do. I think this is one of the best spots for LeBron. Now, I understand that Derrick Jones and Robert Covington are there for Portland to defend the wings, but I mean, the problem with the last game against Utah, and I told a lot of people to avoid LeBron, is that Utah has been fantastic defensively. You look at LeBron against teams that don't play much defense, and he's going for 55, 60 fantasy points. And I think he could potentially have a higher ceiling if this game really turns into a shootout. We know he can give you triple doubles. We know that he can give you 30 actual. This feels like a game where him and Damian Lillard just go back and forth and score off one another. So, James and I talked about this on the podcast. LeBron is the highest priced player on FanDuel. Do you want to pay that for LeBron James? And I understand the hesitation when we've talked about guys cheaper than him, like a Trey Young, like Kawhi Leonard gets Memphis at cheaper price tags. We could see Jimmy Butler tonight without Bam. I don't necessarily love the matchup against Utah, but again, like, he's a guy that can give you triple doubles as well. Dame Lillard cheaper. So, like, there's a lot of cheaper guys that have the 60 fantasy point upside as LeBron.
Right.
But something about LeBron against Portland to me just makes me feel like there's like 70 fantasy point upside here. And
their defense has sucked for years.
They're so bad defensively, I know. And even with the wing help that they've added, like, they still haven't been great. They still have no rim protector. Enes Kanter is going to see LeBron James driving down the lane and probably turtle. He's
just going to be like, ow.
Yeah, he's not going to know what to do. If he's trying to get bodied, he'll become a top shot. It's what we're looking at here. So I have no problem going with LeBron James paying up tonight. It doesn't bother me at all. And I think it could maybe even be a little bit contrarian because, like we said, there's other guys that are a bit cheaper that could be appealing.
I loved it. I almost just started cracking up hysterically when you're like, they've got the wings. They've got Covington and Derrick Jones Jr. Okay, yeah, woo! That's really, really scary. It's not going to stop LeBron.
They're considered good wing defenders, Fenty. I don't know what to tell you. The problem is LeBron doesn't shoot from the wing, so, like, it doesn't really matter. He's going to dribble drive them all the way to the rim the whole time. So
yeah, they're not going to keep up. How do you feel about Kelly Oubre?
Love him. Listen, we've been attacking Charlotte all season long at the small forward position here. So even with with Golden State getting a little bit healthier, their centers are back with Looney and Wiseman. So it's shifting Draymond now down to the power forward and sort of throwing the rotations off a bit here. I'm not going to hold the game against the Pacers against him. A rare game for him where he had no blocks, no steals, no assists. He gave you 17 actual still. The rebounds were fine. So I have no problem. The game against Charlotte, people point to last time, we had 42 fantasy points. It is worth noting there was no Steph Curry in that game, so he was certainly relied upon to score a bit more. But I love the rotations that they're using him in. The Kerr's bringing him in to sort of be with that second unit, leaving him on the floor with them to be that early sub out and then running the offense. So still a really good mid-tier price. Nothing's changed defensively for Charlotte. That makes me think they can defend the shooting guard position, the small forward position any better. So yeah, I'm fine with Oubre, and I even like the opposite side of that matchup with Gordon Hayward here. I think he's going to be in a really good spot again tonight. The scoring's starting to come on again, back from that little injury situation that he dealt with. And the price is coming down. He's under $7K now over on DraftKings. There were times where Gordon Hayward was near $8,000, and you're like, you need 40 fantasy points. It seems like much. But now on FanDuel, you only need 35. On DraftKings, like you said, you need like 33 fantasy points or something in that range. So very doable from Gordon Hayward, and I think it actually gives him some upside on tonight's slate.
Now, Grande's got Malik Monk in the playbook as well. And
yeah, I pointed that out to him last night on the podcast. I'm glad he's listening.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. All he does is score. That's the problem.
Is that a problem? I mean, when you look at the price tag that you're paying for him, and it's okay if you're scoring 20 actual points because you only need that from him.
Okay. You think, so you're telling me you're thinking he's scoring 20 points tonight?
He scored 20 or more in 3 of the last 4 games. He's coming off the bench. There's no Devontae Graham. They could be changing their rotations around with Cody Zeller potentially not playing, where now they have to shift in. PJ Washington could start at the 5. We could see Bridges start at the 4. And it could just leave Monk more as that even second unit scorer than before. Now, we've seen Monk, not score well either. He's not an efficient scorer at times, but given his recent trend, and you say he only scores, I mean, that's not totally true. I mean, you look at his rebounding, you like guards that rebound 4 or more in 4 of the last 5, coming off the bench. He's giving you a couple of assists. So if he's going to give me 18, 4, and 2 tonight at his sub-K, 5K price tag, I'm fine with that.
Well, I mean, we'll have to see. If he gets any higher, though, we're going to be in an argument about.
Oh yeah, the whole point is more about where he's priced at. Right. I'm not paying $6,000 for him. I'm paying $49 and $52. So that's where I'm at with it.
Man, you know what? You kind of convinced me on him. Good job, John. That's why you're the glorious one.
My job is to make compelling arguments for people I believe in. So
exactly. This is why you're here. Let's talk about the power forward position here, because you mentioned Domantas Sabonis. Does it get any better than this for this guy?
No, I don't think it gets much better for this. I mean, we're talking about a matchup here against Boston who, listen, Celtics are my team. I live right outside the city. I can basically see the Garden from my house. They're playing some of the worst basketball I've seen them play in some time. They're below 500. Many people thought that they had a chance to repeat, go deep in the playoffs. They've been to the Eastern Conference Finals now in like 3 or 4 straight years. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are playing the best they've ever played, and they're losing. And the team ownership is going around talking about there's lack of effort, lack of hustle. And I don't know where it's coming from. I think the front court has always been a problem. I really wish they would play Robert Williams more. I know that much. Tristan Thompson's been fine. Daniel Tice is okay, but Sabonis, this just feels like a really good matchup for him to tear them apart again.
You should. If you don't want to pay up for Domantas Sabonis, you could look down a little bit, because we did mention before that Al Horford is going to be resting in this game. So all of a sudden, Isaiah Roby becomes very much in play, whereas I'm kind of toggling back and forth, or at least I was before you did a great job convincing me I'm the Malik Monk. This is a great value play tonight.
Yeah, he'll be pretty highly rostered tonight as well. He generally is when Al Horford's ruled out, because he's always a bench play. So DraftKings and FanDuel don't ever really price him up ever, because the one-off games where Al Horford is ruled out, Roby's price is still going to be under $5,000 because they don't have a reason to give him a $6,000 or $7,000 price tag. So, does he have a huge ceiling? No, but he's been pretty consistent this season when playing 28 to 30 minutes. He can give you that 25 to 30 fantasy points. So, and it's a good matchup against Atlanta. Now, Atlanta is not as bad as it's the center as they once were. Clint Capela is there now. Capela is a good rim protector and really turning into one of the league's better centers. And I love when we get to center, I love Clint Capela tonight. One of my top plays, I think, of the entire slate. Centers against the Thunder offenses you've known have just been a smash all season long, especially when Horford isn't there. So I think Roby's fine for the price. I think he'll give you the 20 to 25 fantasy points you need. And like you said, especially on FanDuel where you're looking for some value, he offers that.
Yeah, 2 other power forwards that I like are actually playing each other tonight, and these are the final 2 we'll talk about before moving on to the centers. PJ Washington, obviously, with Zeller now banged up, looking like he's not going to play. He's definitely in play, a nice value play, 5.6 and 5.4 on the respective sites. And then if you want to spend up a little bit, Draymond Green is still safe. Again, we're attacking Charlotte as much as possible. With no Zeller, makes it even that much easier to get to the basket, even with some of the Warriors' big man depth back in the mix. I like that for his assist, because that's really been the moneymaker when it comes to his production.
Yeah, we're not counting on him for points, which is great, right? Like, Fancy, you're always talking about guys that do other things. Well, Draymond only does other things. Right. And if the points come, then you have huge, huge nights like we got the other night with 47 fantasy points out of him on DraftKings, 12 points, 9 boards, 11 assists, a block, 3 steals. He's $6,900 on DraftKings to get the bonuses for double doubles and triple doubles over there, so that's great. And then on FanDuel, you take advantage of the fact that you get the extra point for blocks and steals. Now you're paying for that on FanDuel. He's $7,300, a little bit more expensive than he is on DraftKings. Washington he's a much greater value on FanDuel rather, where he's down at $5,600. I think Washington's going to be a core play for me tonight. I'm hoping that he starts at center. We'll have to wait and see exactly what happens. We won't even know that starting lineup until late because it is a 10 o'clock game. They could go Biombo for 20 minutes and slide Washington over. But if we get 30-plus minutes out of Washington tonight against a Looney, a Wiseman, a Paschal, whatever they're going to do at center, I think this is a really great spot for him.
Oh, 100%. So power forward, that's your sweet value spot tonight. That's for sure. Give you like 3 guys.
Which is great because last night you had no option but to spend up at power forward. It was absolutely dreadful.
Right. But you know what's awesome? Now I can spend up for LeBron. I can pay the high price point for LeBron and go all value power forward. Yep. Be good. There you go. This is what we do. We create magic here. Clint Capela, like you mentioned, he's in my starting 5 video for a reason. And again, you can't just look at the last game. 9-9. Who cares? Before that, he was a double-double machine.
It was a 9-9 in 21 minutes, Fancy. It was just a blowout.
Right. But players are going to see that. Semi-casual players, the players that are actually regularly playing, are going to see that, and they're going to be like, well, if he's not going to score 15 points, then he's done. But this is a matchup that he should absolutely destroy, and I don't even think he needs 30 minutes to do so.
No, it should be this could be a 20 rebound game for him, honestly. This is going to be a big night, in my opinion, for Clint Capela. I think this is, the problem is he's the most expensive center on the slate, and there are other guys that are cheaper that I do kind of like. So, I want to see, and I got to sort of retweak some builds here to figure out how I can fit him in there, because I really do think that the upside that he brings to the table is potentially as, the highest scoring center on the slate. But I love Mason Plumlee, cheaper, $1,200 cheaper on FanDuel against Sacramento. I just think that's a great spot for him tonight. And then if we find out that Jonas Valanciunas doesn't play, that's going to open up some other value. Like Gorgui Dieng could see 25 minutes tonight. And we saw when he was seeing that playing time with Valanciunas out, a handful of weeks ago, how productive he was. And I think Dieng is close to mid-price. He's $4,000. So, it could be a spend-down spot for him there. James and I did a lot of theory crafting on Ivica Zubac for tonight. You look at back-to-backs for the Clippers and how they use Zubac versus Ibaka. And Ibaka was really limited, whereas Zubac was seeing the majority of the minutes on second nights of back-to-back. So, if that ends up holding true tonight, Zubac at 5,400 could be in a great spot. And then Wendell Carter, well, I don't love the matchup against Phoenix for most. I think you can go ahead and attack them at their front court position. DeAndre Ayton just really isn't a good defender, for as good of an offensive talent that he can be, at times. I think Wendell Carter, as long as he's staying out of foul trouble, which he's done a really good job at doing lately, double-doubles in back-to-back games, over 30 minutes in 2 of the last 3. You're getting 40 fantasy points out of Carter the last 2 games, and I think he can do that again tonight.
Well, what about on the other side? What about Ayton versus Carter, who is a shoddy defender?
Yeah. So, again, my problem more so with Ayton is the matchup in terms of, if Phoenix jumps out to a 30-point lead, Ayton, 2 of the last 3 games where they had blowouts, Ayton didn't play more than 25 minutes. Right? So, and Phoenix has been blowing out teams. It's a 7-point spread tonight. So if Phoenix jumps out to that lead, what do we expect for their starters to play? And that's why I'm kind of wary to play a lot of the Phoenix guys tonight, even though it is against Chicago and it's a great matchup. It's why I'm hesitant to play some of the top tier.
Jay Crowder for me. That you did because of that. I was liking Jay Crowder going into tonight.
Yeah, so I like Jay Crowder too. So I need to know what happens with Dario Saric. If Saric is ruled out, I think more minutes can certainly go in Crowder's direction. But we saw Cam Johnson in the blowouts play over 30 minutes. He's a guy that's benefiting. So, again, it's not that I don't like the matchup for Phoenix. It's just that I think they're going to do too well. And I think they're going to potentially run Chicago off the floor here. Now, Chicago's actually a good team this year. Billy Donovan has turned that franchise around. Shocking what happens when you get good coach and good management in an organization, and you can kind of make a winning team out of some of these guys. So, But I just feel like the way Phoenix has been playing teams lately, they're really stifling down offensive production. They're blowing teams out. So I don't like the top end guys of Chicago. I don't really like a lot of Phoenix here, but I think, Patrick Williams, who we didn't talk about, I think Patrick Williams plays no matter what. If it's a blowout, he's on the floor playing 35 minutes. If it's competitive, even better. He's on the floor anyways, and he's been really good lately. So, if you want some exposure there, if you're looking for some value, a guy like Patrick Williams could be certainly somebody that you take a look at here.
We've been talking a lot about that Houston-Toronto game, and we don't have any updated news on Toronto. However, Houston's lineup is out, and just for comedic effect, Wall, Oladipo, House, Tate, Tucker. Small ball in Pemba.
I'm saying, this is a fantastic spot to play Chris Boucher. Like, it's
right.
He's got 4 inches on the next tallest guy on the floor for the Rockets. Like, Tucker's 6'7", probably on a good day, right? Like, Boucher's 6'10".
No, they're not going to give him the minutes though. No. They're going to play him 17 minutes still.
Yeah, it's going to be annoying. They're probably going to match and go small. You'll see Anobi at center, and you'll get Terrence Davis and Norman Powell and Kyle Lowry and Fred VanVleet out there. So it's going to be stupid, but this should be a spot for Boucher again. I'm going to have exposure to him tonight. I'm saying that now. It's going to be sort of a live or die situation for me in my lineups tonight with him. But if he plays at his price tag and plays 30 minutes tonight, we've seen him go for 45, 50 fantasy points. Tremendous shot blocker, athletic, can hit threes, double-double upside. I don't know what Nick Nurse doesn't like about the kid. Honestly, I don't.
You know what it is? It's your stupid positionless basketball. That's what it is.
But he can play positionless basketball.
Let's stretch the floor like everybody else does.
He does. He shoots threes. That's the whole problem. I don't understand why he doesn't play more. He is a 3-point shooter, and it's just it's the most frustrating thing for me that he doesn't get on the floor. And you see Aaron Baines playing 30 minutes in 2 of the last 3 games. Chris Boucher, Fensty, 46% from 3 this year. He's averaging 3.6 3-point attempts this year, hitting 1.7. It's not that he can't stretch the floor. If anything, he's maybe their best 3-point shooter on the team. I don't get why he's not playing.
And I'm gonna say this too, J.I. I'm gonna say this too, and I actually placed a bet on it that if Jeremy Grant gets hurt, Chris Boucher is gonna win Most Improved Player. How about that?
Yeah, it's possible. It's certainly possible. I think he's definitely in that conversation. I think Jaylen Brown is in that conversation.
Jaylen Brown is in that conversation too. I'm sorry, I messed up. Chris Boucher, 6th man. That's
6th man, yeah, okay. 6th man works.
6th man. I did place that bet too, though. Jaylen Brown, Most Improved. I think that absolutely is deserving. Follow Jon Impemba at jimpemba777 on Twitter. You can follow me at Fensty Sports. Get in the chat. 7:30 lock. The big story that we're watching for the next hour and change: the Toronto Raptors. Pascal Siakam is not going to play because of health protocols. He is now in the COVID protocol. Who else is going to be in there? We will all find out together. Let's do it. Let's dominate. No other option. Let's win.